5 minutes after 8 o'clock. Welcome to Island Tea. It's Wednesday, April 12th. Good morning, Candy Wendy.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. It's hump day. Man,
Wednesday.
It's crazy.
Yes, it's another
I was
short
actually
week.
thinking, I was still thinking it was, even though I knew Monday was a holiday,
Yes.
somehow I was
Still
still
feeling
thinking,
like it's Tuesday today, right?
Yeah.
I know, it kind of caught us off guard, but it's another short week.
Just now I was about to say hump day, right? And then I caught myself, no, it's not hump day.
It is, though.
And then you're right.
Hump
you know,
day.
exactly.
So, Azard is running a little bit late, so I wanted to start off on a good note. Yesterday, I was running a little bit late, and I know for a few days we haven't been able to get in our positivity, so I wanted to slip that in this morning just before we started. It is going to be quite an interesting day. We are expecting a national hero in studio with us later today. So stay tuned for that. Right now, let me just slip some positivity your way. And today I want to leave this with you. Do what you can with what you have where you are at. Do what you can with what you have where you're at. So basically, like the good old proverb says, make hay while the sun shines. Use what you have where you're at right now and use it in any way that you can to get where you need to go. So do what you can with what you have where you're at. And after that, we want to get into the news. So as we wait for Azard and Jamster, they both seem a little bit disconnected this morning. Jamster, where are you? So I wanted to...
I'm right here, don't worry.
Awesome.
Remember I'm doing other stuff as well. I was actually looking for a file from yesterday.
A file from yesterday?
Yeah.
Does that have to do with anything for today?
No, I wanted to save it. I didn't save it yesterday, so I was looking for it. I said, I need to save that file because I forgot to do it yesterday.
Oh my goodness. You still reeling from the long weekend, huh?
Okay,
Right.
so
So I wanted to discuss just some of the things that are happening there, everywhere. Just some local news. Is that what you wanted to jump into?
Wait, one quick thing before we go. There will be no farm report today. Troy will not be able to make it in today, and he was unable to get a replacement. So hopefully we'll have the farm report next week. And we want to let the listeners know it's not that they don't want. I mean, we all know they were here last week, and I guess the rain must have dampened their spirits as well.
Yeah.
Because I think you mentioned, I wonder what happened to all that food last week.
I know. And because they were so hyped, and I don't think any of us expected that weather. All of us were kind of taken off guard. I think we even had a little bit of hail, which,
yes,
from my recollection, we've never had here.
Yeah, we've had hail before. Yeah,
I'm not that
but,
I haven't been around that long.
I remember, last night I was in a grocery store with my son, right? And after I bought what we wanted, I went down. I said, "Oh, let's go down to the snack aisle. Tell me if you need anything." And he said, "No, I don't need anything." So there was one of my friends, a worker who works there. I said, "Can you imagine?" I asked my son if he needs anything, and he says, "No, we're probably gonna have hail again." She started to laugh.
It took a bunch of us off guard.
I had to ask him twice. He said no. I said okay.
How old is he?
He's 8.
So was he scared? Was he shocked? Was he intrigued? What did he feel?
Matter of fact, he really didn't want anything else.
No, I mean about the hail.
I don't think he knows about it.
Oh.
No, I don't think he knows about it. Yeah, it's an adult thing, I guess. I'll have to show him have to show him the videos and tell him, those little pellets are ice.
Because see, you said that it happened before, but maybe it happened and no one showed me. Maybe I was.
Everyone talked about it after it happened last week. Everyone reminded me, "Oh, you remember it happened in the past." They said it happened in the 90s, so I don't think I wouldn't have been here then. But they said it happened in the 90s and some other time. I think they said Phillips's.
Yeah, I think that's where we got the first report from. Yeah.
No, meaning it happened Phillips's.
Somebody called in, I think, and said it had happened before in Phillips's.
Yeah, and then it happened Phillips's.
Yeah, I think that's where it started this time. If my memory serves me right, it was in the Phillips's Molyneux area. It started.
Yeah, must be some.
Came down to Sadler's area.
Must be some microclimate thing going on in that area.
Well, for those who don't believe in climate change, ta-da!
Yeah. So news, let's talk about the news.
So in the news, of course, there's the homicide issue, and I'm not even sure if I want to touch on that because we spent so much time on that last week, and it is somewhat depressing and stressful to me because I am not even sure why we're back at this juncture, right? And it's the young men. So I'm not even sure if I want to touch that. But other than that, there's the SKN GDP. There's a report from the IMF saying that our economy is expected to retract to 3.8 in 2024, following a 4.5 growth in 2023. Now, I have not been able to touch this article to find out what are the reasons that they're thinking that we're going to retract. But, speaking from a personal point of view, I feel like the IMF is always browbeaten. It's never good news. I mean, how are we at 4.5 right now? And then all of a sudden it's going to retract. I mean, granted, yes, COVID is still in the air. Whether or not we want to admit it, there's climate change. There's a bunch of stuff that's going on in the world with all the banks crashing in the U.S. And so, of course, it's going to take a toll. Yeah. But did we really need this report right now?
There are a lot of variables. I imagine maybe one of the things they might be projecting is the fact that, because food and because a lot of things have gone up, maybe they factored that in. So maybe that accounted for 0.5%. It's okay, a lot of things have gone up, so maybe people might cut back. So, and then you talked about the banks and all these other things. The war, they don't know how long the war is going to continue. So I figure all those things factored into their projections, and of course the projections could be off as well. Right,
because it's just projections, right? So something can happen and change it. Because they said that while the Federation's economy, while on the regional frontier, faced headwinds in the last couple of years, suggesting a need to improve the competitiveness of the labor market that currently has stagnant labor productivity and disconnection between wage and labor productivity. There's still growth across the sector. So there's growth, but because of all the things that are happening outside, like you said, other factors, they're projecting a retraction of the economy. Well, let's hope
did you catch when I heard the story, I thought that's kind of the wrong choice of word. Is that actually what the Loop article says? That's the word they use?
I'm actually reading it from the WIN FM. It says SKN GDP is expected to retract to 3.8 in 2024 following 4.5 growth. So we're currently in a growth phase. And hopefully we can, save some of that for a rainy day.
The correct word there should be contract, but anyway, whatever. When I heard it, I thought I heard wrong. I heard it this morning. Said retract.
But retract can work because retract means to pull back.
It means to pull back.
It's going to pull back. It's going to decrease, drop.
Contract would be better. But anyway, I hope Kevin doesn't kill me when he comes in.
I hope Kevin is listening.
Hope he's listening.
Right. So there's that. As it relates to the IMF, and they're saying that the way to fix this is to strengthen the labor market. So strengthening the labor market holds the key to strengthening job opportunities, restoring competitiveness, and supporting sustainable growth with more investment in value-added services, developing job opportunities in more productive sectors like fishing, mining, education, health, financial intermediary, and real estate services.
I also noticed the line that seemed to imply that wages weren't keeping pace with the cost of living.
I haven't gotten that far.
Yeah, I heard that in the report this morning.
I haven't gotten that far.
Those were my words, but a line that was basically what he was saying.
But you know what jumps out at me from this article are the things that they're suggesting that we put more effort into, right? Fishing, mining, education, health, financial intermediary, real estate services. And these are things that Azard and I have spoken about as of yesterday.
What's financial intermediary?
Banking. That's the banking issue,
right.
right? And these are things that we touch on like almost every day. Yesterday we were talking about education and how expensive education is. Even after you go and you spend these exorbitant amounts of money, you come back, you still can't get a job. You can't really live the lifestyle that you want to.
Chronic underemployment.
Right.
A lot of times.
We're surrounded by the sea, but you know, fishing is still mentioned here. That means there's room for growth in fishing. One of the things that strikes me about our economy is that I feel like we don't make use of the resources that we have. I mean, the farmers come in here, we discuss their issue all the time, food security.
Yeah.
Right? And St. Kitts is so fertile. Like, you know, I know there's like this running joke, like if you spit on the soil, something will grow, right? So the soil is so fertile. Why can't we get our agricultural sector up and running to the point where we can export to other islands?
People always
point to what makes Dominica, you know, able to do it and St. Kitts unable to.
Yeah.
You know, why can't we export fish? Why can't we export our agriculture?
And there've been repeated efforts to incentivize large-scale fishing, like in terms of large ships and people getting bigger trawlers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it has never really taken off. Most of the guys seem content to just go up with the traditional small boats and pull up the fish pots, maybe throw a net now and then. And
does it come back to a education matter where we still do not view agriculture as maybe the way out for us, right? So
that's part of it.
As part of this report, the very last paragraph says, however, the country with the most significant growth projection is Guyana. According to the IMF report, Guyana, now seen as an oil-producing country, is expected to see economic growth of 37.2% in 2023, with an increase to 45.3% in 2024. And, one of the reasons I mention this is because I think the Caribbean islands or the countries are similar in some regard, in some of the things that we do. And it would benefit us if we took pattern off of each other. For instance, Guyana exports fish. Guyana is involved in mining, and now they've found oil. So I think in St. Kitts we have the potential. I remember having a conversation with someone yesterday that at one point in time we had a shrimp farm. There was a shrimp farm in St. Kitts. There was a tilapia farm here.
Yes, the same place.
What happened to all of those things?
And in that same conversation, we spoke about the shoe manufacturing company.
Right, we had a shoe factory here.
Up where TDC is now.
I don't have a clue where it is because I think Azard and I were too young.
Yeah.
But, we have so much untapped potential here. And that's why I said, what the IMF is saying is a projection, right? There's absolutely no reason that it has to go this way.
In a weird way, we've regressed in a lot of ways. Because, we used to make shoes.
A lot of the factories up at the industrial site also closed down because of COVID. So I think, yes, I can see where their report is coming from, but I can also see the flip side where we don't have to take their report as gospel, right? There's so much potential. We can get our food security sorted and go with that.
But you have to remember now, of course, I am far from a financial expert, but as far as I know, most of these productions are given to them by the government.
Isn't it that they come in and they do a review, they go through, like, let's say, for instance, and Azard, you could jump in here because consolidated fund, the treasury reports, and, all the different financial reports, and they plug in those and do some data analysis, and then they come up with this?
Based on the information they're given.
Right. So is it that we have to take this as gospel? Because I remember all the doomsday sayings that they had for Guyana, And even now, like, as Guyanese, there's still issues with the whole oil sector. I mean, every single day you can find somebody complaining about how it's not being managed, how the citizens are not benefiting from
and it's just started.
the resources.
Wow. Yeah.
But people on the outside are seeing it as, yeah, they have oil, they're rich, blah, blah, blah. But even if you have it and you're not using it wisely, you're going to go right back to where you were before. I mean, this report is saying that Guyana is projected to grow further.
It's like
right?
almost 35% this year, right?
It's 37.2,
yeah, okay.
right, in 2023, and it's going to increase to 45.3
That's crazy.
next year. But again, projections and management.
And also, distribution.
Exactly.
Equitable
Exactly,
distribution
because
of that.
If they don't manage it, it's going to come back to some of the same things that we're being accused of here in St. Kitts with the labor market, with competitiveness.
I mean, remember Guyana is a country with diamonds and gold and stuff, and where did that get us? And now
good question.
Now you add oil to the mix.
So it's like, I like to term it as a that fictional place, Wakanda. There's so much riches, but the citizens aren't benefiting from it because of corruption, because of mismanagement. So just food for thought. These are just projections, and it's not necessarily gospel.
We can come back and talk about some more stories. Okay, it's 8:21. Let's take a quick break, and we will come back and mix it up with some more news stories and more interesting things we might want to share with you guys.
Found the Sound 98.9
Mommy, teacher says you need to buy the workbook so I can keep up in class.
Your teacher does pay me? Every time I turn around is another textbook, another shoe, something you need.
She says I won't pass if I don't get it.
You're not smart enough to pass anyway. You think you're going to be better than that good-for-nothing father of yours? You look like him, your foot shaped like him, and you're not bright, just like him.
Verbal abuse can be just as harmful as physical or sexual abuse. If you're having trouble coping, consider other options other than taking it out on your child.
Richie, look, Mommy's sorry she spoke to you like that. We'll find the money somehow.
This message is brought to you by UNICEF, UKAID, Crime Stoppers, and this station.
Strapped for cash? Get Instacash. Payday late? Get Instacash. Have items new or used you don't need? Get cash for them at Instacash. We buy and sell quality new and used tools, electronics, jewelry, household items, and more. If you're strapped for cash, think Instacash. Sell an item for cash or buy an item. Ask about the convenient Instacash layaway plans and buyback options. Instacash is same-day cash, no credit checks, and guaranteed privacy. Get cash for your goods. Visit Instacash across from Caribbean Lotto in the Hospital Complex or call 465-0222 and 669-8390.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Check this one out. Something smooth. Calm you down. Check out.
And we are back. It's 8:24 Island Tea time. It's Hump Day, and here with AZ and Candy.
Are we gonna do it?
Hump Day. Well,
you know what's funny, right?
You know the ad, right?
No.
Mike, what day is today? Do you know what today is?
So I know that today is the 12th of April, and it's a very special day.
Let's hear why.
One, because I know there are persons out there who might not appreciate we April persons, but it's our month. And we also would have a special guest at 9 a.m. We have Sir Candisie. He is celebrating his birthday. He is 87 years today.
Wow.
It's a milestone.
Oh, so it's today?
Today is his birthday.
All right.
And so he celebrates with us today.
Wow.
We're going to have an exclusive interview with him. We're going to have an opportunity to talk about Sir Candisie, his
The
life.
man.
The man. Every person should be aware of his book, The Making of a National Hero. We actually have it here in studio, and he is the man behind the book. And we've spoken about other national heroes. We've spoken about Robert Llewellyn Bradshaw. We've spoken about Southwell. And we have not had the opportunity, well, so many of us, like myself, you know?
Me too.
I'm fairly young.
We've never had the chance to
We've
speak
never had
to
a chance to speak to them as being national heroes. And so we have an opportunity this morning to speak to a living national hero.
Are you as hyped as I am? Because I'm
super
totally hyped.
If you realize, I just look kind of different today.
Yeah, you kind of like totally mellowed out. And I'm like, how can he be so calm? I'm totally hyped.
And we have another, and St. Kitts and Nevis set the trend because Barbados now has a living national hero.
Ah.
Yeah.
Rihanna.
Only, I know. If only we could interview her too.
I know.
but the funny thing is, the problem with us is that we only seem to think that politicians can be national heroes. I mean, look at with the quickness they gave Rihanna national hero without even.
And that's something I was talking about
Kim
yesterday.
Collins
Remember
should
yesterday
be
I
a
was
national
saying
hero.
You need to give people their flowers while they're here. For me personally, I'm looking forward to when we get our female national hero. So
yeah, that's another good.
That's my new soapbox.
That's another good point.
Right?
That's absolutely another good point.
Because we have so many women that have, they've made so many mark in society. Look at Dame Marcella Liebert.
Yes.
So I am totally hyped and excited for when we get to that stage where it's not just men and it's not just persons in politics, but it's persons you can relate to.
Yeah.
To
change and to expand the conversation and to have persons there, we were looking at some of the articles earlier. I realized that you guys were talking about the growth in the economy and St. Kitts and Nevis. I see Guyana. When I saw the article, I said, Candy is going to have a field there.
I feel torn though, right? Because I know that the IMF doesn't know what the man on the street is complaining and facing, right? So the IMF, like we were just saying, they're just going in and they're analyzing what is presented to them. But the man on the street, as look, for instance, we just got CBI dividends in St. Kitts, right? So where's the oil dividends? Where's that money from the oil? Is that going to trickle down to the everyday citizen? So I feel like I'm torn because the IMF is not, they're just, as Jamsta pointed out, taking what the government gives to them and they're analyzing that data. But a lot of the times when you see these projected growth and retraction and all of that, the regular person, they're only feeling it in their pocket if it's a retraction and inflation and all that is involved. But when there's an actual growth and the country's benefiting, the regular person doesn't feel it in their pockets. And so, like I said, I'm torn because I am Guyanese by birth, but St. Kitts is my home.
And the funny thing
I've been here forever. And so you don't want to see an article like this. So that was my, compensation. I was like, all right, then maybe it's just projections. Maybe we could change this. Maybe if we do something.
For some reason, something we were saying is touching
the IMF, because I'm not a...
Are we having callers?
So hopefully one of the contributors is
an economist, right?
Good morning.
Hey,
good morning, Miss Henry. Let's hear your take.
I just hear Jamaica, they say we like to aim up ignorance. You hear about in Jamaica?
No, sorry, what did you say?
Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when people speak, hear them, they aim up the ignorance.
Mm.
Anyway.
Miss Henry, are you saying that we're ignorant? Are you calling to educate us?
Oh, yes, yes. That was
Thank
my job
you.
for 18 years.
Thank
now.
you.
For
It would have
18
been
years.
nicer to start off with a kinder comment.
I was joking. I was just joking. You know, the conclusion and stuff. I was just joking.
All right, so let's hear your take on it.
But that was my job for 18 years at the planning unit.
Right.
To
And
do
so
the
when we heard you call,
estimate.
we were excited because I know that's your field.
Go
Did
on.
we lose you?
I seem so.
Oh no, her phone probably fell.
One of the things I should point out is that Guyana has a relatively small population compared to
It's underpopulated.
compared to a lot of oil producing countries who actually do the dividend thing every year. Alaska actually does it. Alaska pays oil dividends to their.
Well,
Alaska has
think-
less people than Guyana actually.
As we
It's
talk
also
about
smaller. Guyana is underpopulated based
Yeah.
on its size. It's 83,000 square miles, but there's only about 750,000
Exactly.
persons.
As we
So I
talk
actually
about
think
the
your idea is a
economy,
good idea.
I think, we await Sylvine. I mean, I don't think we should go into this topic too much in depth. Let's recognize that, we are not.
But at the same
Experts,
time,
but it's just
but
our
we're
opinion.
citizens. But
Yes.
we're
It's
citizens.
just
though.
our
We have
opinion.
common sense. We have
Yeah.
common sense.
Right.
So,
I know what you want to touch, so let's go
there
for it.
There are other things in the news. He says here TNT supermarket owners want licensed guns after colleague was murdered. And this is on April 10th. We have the president of the Supermarket Association of Trinidad and Tobago. He called in on Monday on the police to provide business owners with a gun license after gunmen shot and killed a 49-year-old supermarket owner over the weekend.
Good grief.
Yeah. So
Now,
we're
see,
seeing crime and violence has always
know-
been there, but we're seeing it when you have to read it, when you have to digest it, it's always that nerve that strikes.
I'm glad you said that because the CARICOM heads are set to discuss violence in the region at a 2-day symposium. And I heard Prime Minister Keith Rowley giving a speech yesterday about the rise in crime and violence throughout the region. I mean, Trinidad and Jamaica, unfortunately, have always had high crime rates. But recently we see St. Lucia with the gang violence. We see the RSS having to go there from St. Vincent and from Dominica and Guadeloupe. And it's just a little bit overwhelming. And then we are now in the, 4th month of the year. And we've already recorded, nine murders. So the crime and violence is definitely out of hand. But do guns solve gun problems? Because they're asking for guns as supermarket owners. I remember when the farmers came in here, they were asking for guns, but they were asking for guns to get rid of animals. But for me, a gun is a gun is a gun.
Talking about that's one situation. I read another article in St. Lucia where a grandmother and I think a toddler,
This disturbed me over the weekend. A
was
2-year-old.
killed.
He was 2. The house was shot up and he
Yeah,
perished.
and I'm thinking, what is going on?
I actually messaged some St. Lucian friends, man. I was like, what is going on?
Exactly.
This baby is 2.
And you know that, okay, you look at motive, because when a crime happens, you look at what is the motive behind it, what would have led this individual to commit this crime. And in my mind, I am thinking, what is the motive to kill this grandmother and this toddler? You understand?
And it's ridiculous because even moving away from the region, in the last few days, there have been a lot of shootings in banks. I think it was Friday. Yeah, I think it was on Friday. An employee at a bank in the U.S. got he got a slip saying they were going to relieve him. I guess they were laying off. Dude comes back to the bank next morning. Maybe he got the slip on Thursday, comes back to the bank on Friday. They're in the middle of a meeting, just starts shooting up the place. Kills 5 persons. I guess the police, they finally took him out. So that's in a bank. And then just yesterday, there was another shooting in another bank. I think it was a Wells Fargo bank. So it's like everybody has gone trigger happy.
Wow.
But then, like you said, and I guess you're thinking from a legal perspective, right? For me, I always go social first, which is weird, right? But what is the cause? You know, every crime, actus rea, reus mens rea. What's your intention? What caused this? Because of course, the first thing that they resort to when it's persons of a specific ethnicity, it's mental illness. And then others is just, they're just bad. They're just violent, right? So what's bringing this on? And is this symposium a start to us solving it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the height, I mean, criminal activity affects us all. It affects, if not you directly, someone who you know. Someone who you know loses a brother, someone who you know loses a cousin, a grandson, some family member, a nephew. And usually it is, you know, the male population that is being, you know,
depleted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And here, we talked about the Carifta. You know that the athletes are scheduled to return today.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they're scheduled to return today.
Nice positivity. Yes.
And so sometime in the afternoon, they would be back here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I'm sure the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis is extremely proud. I'm told that there's going to be a motorcade that would be escorting them across the capital. And so it's going to be a very festive time in Bastia and perhaps the whole country.
I was very happy to see it because I remember just last night, yesterday we were saying they should do something for them. They should do something nice for them. I think a caller called in and said, you know, they should welcome them, win or lose, just for participating, just for making the cut.
Yeah.
I was
and then I saw this thing coming out saying there's gonna be a motorcade where they're gonna meet them at the Cayenne Jet facility, and then they're gonna drive straight down and then I think across the Wellington Road and just kind of like do a nice circle around Bastia.
And you know, it's good to do this kind of embrace because they are coming back from a very trying time. You know, they would have exerted their efforts, the physical condition that they would have been in. It's not easy running. I mean, many of us can't run as fast as others, and so it is. You remember going around,
a confession?
Going around the track, and boy, I'm gonna come last in this race. And you done, but that was more in high school. In primary school, everybody kind of even. In high school, you realize, okay, then
this is the talent, and this is the making up the numbers.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys realize, right, that we still don't know what the final medal count and so is.
We're still awaiting the final medal count.
One thing I wanted to say, I'm looking at the rank. I don't think St. Kitts' rank is going to change, right? But you guys have to realize that Kim Collins is... I have to attribute a lot of this to the positive reinforcement that Kim Collins' legend status has had on local athletes. Because, listen, Jamaica, Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, those countries outstrip us by a lot population-wise. And to see St. Kitts Nevis number 4 on the table is nothing to sneeze at, I don't think.
But remember I told you that he trains some of them.
Yes, but Barbados is 5th. Another country that outstrips us by a lot. So, I'm looking at, Jamaica 1, Bahamas 2. Jamaica has 3 million people. Bahamas has 300,000 people. Trinidad, 2 million people. St. Kitts Nevis what? Barely 50,000 people. Barbados 5th, 300,000 people. That's pretty impressive.
True.
So even when we get the final results, because if you listen to sports this morning, the Win FM Sports, one of the stories that Trent read was the issue of sorting out some of these DQs and so on.
Right.
And I even read an article, a local article from a local media organization, talking about the Jalen Bennett situation. Some people timed it and they said when he got to not even that one, another race somebody had to rerun a race, and they said when they timed it, they were like, but they were saying it's 22, but when he got to the line and he dipped, it was like 21 something.
No.
And
who timed it? The person that was looking at it?
Yeah, I mean, that's not really
that's
a good idea.
Crazy,
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, okay.
That's crazy.
I mean, when we look at the population size of these countries, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, as you indicated, they are vastly more than St. Kitts and Nevis. And, you know, even at this school level, when I was at the University of West Indies, and you have your Jamaican counterparts, and they're, you know, so proud of their country, and they're saying, you know, well, we do this, we do that. And I say, you know, just for us to stand on this stage with them during these times is a tremendous accomplishment, because they have about, if I'm not mistaken, I think they have millions of people. I think it's almost 3 million, if my
Jamaica, right?
Yeah, almost 3 million. I think it's 2.7 million or something like that. And when you look at that size, you know how much talent you could garner from a population of 2.73 million.
But then it comes back to where
50,000.
You're putting your emphasis, right? Because, again, there's absolutely no reason why we can't perform on that same level. I mean, I've been speaking to persons in the athletics arena, and they've been complaining, even the persons that maintain the arena, they were complaining about how damaged the area was because of us hosting
music
different events up there that are not meant for that. When I went to the Marshall's concert in Trinidad, they had it in the Hazley Crawford Stadium, which they also use for sports, but the ground was covered. So they had like these little squares that they covered the track with, so the track wouldn't get damaged. Now, I'm not saying that we didn't do that. My issue is, where are we putting our focus? Why isn't there a bigger focus on sports tourism, right? Yes, Jamaica is bigger. Yes, Jamaica has more persons. Yes, Guyana is underpopulated. I was looking at a swimming race last night. I had to message my mom. I was like, this guy got fish in him? Like,
Guyana?
This guy that tore up the swimming pool, I think his name is Ray Kwan, in the swimming meet at Carifta, right? And we haven't had swimmers from Guyana in forever. I remember like swimming at the Olympics, the only person we had that I could recall from the Caribbean was somebody from Trinidad.
Yeah, and there's
right,
a guy
because
from
they have
Suriname
Olympic,
as well.
Right, they have Olympic-sized swimming pools. They put the efforts into that. I think that it's where we put our efforts. Listen, there's absolutely no reason why we can't have swimmers. We are an island. Yes. We are literally surrounded by water. Right?
Fish and swimming need to be addressed.
But I mean, these things, I mean, whoever, the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ministry of Sports, I was having a conversation with someone, and they were saying, an athlete, they were saying, oftentimes you have the Ministry of Education, you have the Ministry of Sports. Do they work together?
Yes,
you
that's
understand?
the problem.
Because
There's a disconnect.
The Ministry of Education is pushing one thing.
Yes.
The Ministry of Sports is pushing another.
And culture is supposed to be included in that as well. Because, and one of the things I noticed, and I was going to, speak to somebody in the St. Kitts Athletic Association. It's training. I was listening to an interview one of the athletes was giving. And yes, he might have been nervous, and of course he was winded because he just won the race. But it was just the presentation, because you have to remember, when you are leaving to represent your country, you automatically become an ambassador. So every single thing that you do, it's almost as if you're on stage. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself, the way you hold your flag, the way you wear your uniform. You are on stage. You're basically putting on a show. And I find like a lot of times when we go out there and we're representing the country, heaven forbid they ask us for an interview. Like, I'm sitting there cringing, right? And I feel like it's something that you're an all-arounder. Like, you've seen LeBron James give interviews, because they always pull them after the game, win or lose, courtside. Even after that, they have press conferences. And they're prepared. They're ready to, have that conversation. We really need to get our act together.
There was an adorable variant on that theme when I was watching Carifta after the relays. There were 4 women, and the 4th girl was, she was really timid, and she didn't speak. So it was actually more adorable than anything. It wasn't like, because the other three were very articulate and everything, but then the last one was like she got bashful and stuff, and I kind of understood it. They cut away to the Barbados, the Bahamas, broadcaster. They cut away to a clip of,
and they're still young, so that's not always the perfect time to start, because they're still young, so they can take the training.
Yeah.
Right, but we should always remember that, and that's what I was talking about. When you go out there, you are an ambassador. As long as you leave this island to represent St. Kitts for anything at all,
I agree. There should
you
be
are an ambassador. So you should have facts and knowledge about your country, because people are going to ask you, right? And you should be ready to talk about your discipline or what you're here to do. But it should also be in a manner where persons that are not familiar with our accent can understand.
Yes.
So there should be basic poise and deportment kind of
there should be training
classes or something.
So perhaps like a professional seminar where it is that you train athletes, how to.
This should be part of their training. Just as hard as you train on the track, you should train for interviews.
That's a good point.
Because you're representing us.
That is very true, because when you go out there, you are the ambassador of St. Kitts and Nevis. You're an ambassador.
Exactly.
Sometimes the only St. Kitts and Nevis someone sees is through your representation.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it needs to be on point.
Okay, caller, go right ahead. It's 8:46. Go right ahead.
Good morning.
Speaking about swimming, you are acquainted with his name, Atkinson?
Yeah.
Yes, Ali, from Jamaica,
international scene in swimming.
Yeah.
And then again, let us go back to 1973. This year, about 50 years since St. Kitts won the very first Caribbean netball tournament. Don't you think one or two of these said ladies should have been made a national hero? And one of those said person I'm referring to is person like Marcella Liber, goal attack, Gillian Musgrave goal shoot, Rosemary McMaster, and all those ladies went to Grenada.
Yes.
What do you call them? So they say? Grenada went netball crazy. Good morning. Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
Thank you for your input. It's
Thank
true.
You.
There are a lot of women that can fit the bill. So it's something that we should look into and start working on. I mean, September is right around the corner. So thank you for that, caller.
Yeah.
But when you go on the world stage, you should be ready for any and everything. And I remember that was one of the things that I always have a pet peeve about, because people don't give you enough credit when you go overseas to represent the country.
No, they don't.
Because there's so much pressure. And that's why I'm so happy that they're doing this motorcade, because it's not easy to, first of all, you're not even in your own comfort zone. You're away from home. You're away from family. You're lucky if you have that good enough relationship with your teammates that you can be somewhat comfortable. And then you still have to go perform, and the entire world is watching you. Right?
Which is why I remember yesterday I said, I think at least some of the blunders that happen are partially attributable to the kids and the inexperience.
Yeah, they're young. They're young.
So,
we
which is not to say
need to have a conversation about it, though.
Okay, 8:48. We've got Sir Kennedy Simmons coming up at 9:00.
Yes.
And I'm thinking. Okay, any other stories that you guys wanted to talk about?
Well, I found the article on Loop where we were discussing a 2-year-old boy and grandmother savagely slain in St. Lucia.
Right.
A St. Lucian family is consumed with grief and anger after two of their loved ones were slain last evening while in their bed. The grandmother's age was 47 and the child 2. And according to a family member, the assailants used a chair to reach a partially open window in the house where they fired the gunshots.
So they knew exactly what they were doing. So they purposely went to gun down a grandmother and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
You see this insanity? We have a
Apparently-
mental health crisis in in the region.
The assailants went into another home of a relative of the victim before shooting the 2 victims, but the occupant of that home wasn't there at the time. So clearly you're seeing some sort of
Connection.
connection.
Just before we leave this arena, did you guys get that email, or it was, I think, a message going around where it says that National Bank is no longer going to be purchasing First Caribbean?
Yeah, that was on the news last week.
Right.
Yeah.
But I know we didn't touch on it, and I
Yes.
think one of the reasons was that there was not gonna be any more what did they state? Like there were not gonna be any more overseas banks. I think the ECCB was the person that
So
that
it
listed.
would just be First Caribbean now because, they're owned by CIBC. So
Right. No, I'm trying to bring to memory what,
Yeah, I
what
remember
the
hearing that.
article was saying.
Okay, I have the article here.
Thank you, Azard.
It says First Caribbean International Bank Limited announced today that the sale of its assets of First Caribbean International Bank Barbados Limited in St. Kitts to St. Kitts and Nevis and Anguilla National Bank Limited will not go ahead. A statement explains that the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank provided conditional approval for the sale of the assets and banking business of First Caribbean International Bank Limited in St. Kitts to St. Kitts Nevis and Anguilla National Bank Limited only on July 15, 2022, subject to certain conditions. So based on the National Bank in St. Kitts, it recently informed the FCIB Barbados that it has not secured the final approval from the ECCB to conclude with the acquisition. So the ECCB subsequently notified FCIB Barbados of its decision not to grant final approval for the sale of its operations in St. Kitts. Notwithstanding the denial of approval outlined above, the ECCB remains fully engaged with the FCIB Barbados, and it continues to assess its operational footprint in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. This means that the First Caribbean International Bank Barbados Limited will retain its presence in St. Kitts and has announced plans to transform the way it does business in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right. So because that was going to be another bank that was going to come out under National Bank. And I don't know if there was any concern that it was just going to be a domination of National Bank.
Well, the managing director for the bank in Barbados and the OECS countries, Donna Wellington, noted that the bank will take this opportunity to transform its business in St. Kitts. Our priority is to signal to the market that we are staying and open for business. We have been conservative in the St. Kitts market over the past year and a half as we prepare for business of sale. However, we will now concentrate our efforts on building the business, reconnecting with both our retail and corporate clients in a big way, and providing them with the best products and services the CIBC First Caribbean has to offer.
I like that she says conservative. That's
Yeah,
an
so-
interesting use of the word.
Yes. I saw another article where it was referenced that the central bank saw some issues with National Bank, which they didn't think would sit well with them taking over.
Right, and that's what I was
CIB.
asking, if it was because it's going to be like a dominance of one bank. Because you have to remember, have you noticed that there are no longer any Canadian banks here?
Yes.
Right? Scotiabank was taken over by Republic Bank, which is Trinidad-based.
Yeah.
And First Caribbean was about to be bought out by National Bank.
National Bank.
Royal Bank was bought out by Bank of Nevis.
Bank of Nevis.
And we're already suffering with intermediary bank issues. So when I saw the article, I was like, wonder why they stopped this sale. I mean, granted what they said, right? Is it because they think that, we don't need so much control from one bank. There needs to be a variety.
Looking at
And again, this is just my, that was just my,
To-
right,
to-
of course, this
to-
is what
yeah.
I thought.
to be maybe a little more clear, what the impression I got was something to do with National Bank's balance sheet. That's the impression I got.
That's what you got?
Yeah.
So you took
based on the article, yeah.
But based on their what do you call it?
That's why I said problematic.
Their financial report.
Or questionable.
They were good. They made a lot of money. They had a lot of.
Remember, the central bank is chock full of financial experts. So, so they would see things that a layman like three of us here,
Well, that is not our specialty, as I told Mrs. Henry earlier in the morning. Both Azard and I studied law, not economics.
Exactly.
So this would just be from a layman's point of view. So, yes, and we move on.
Okay, I wanted to touch on one quick story. I actually sent them in the chat last night. Apparently, Elon Musk.
Oh boy.
No, what happened? I thought this was interesting because this is something that's big in China. These do-it-all apps, and Elon Musk had stated even before he bought Twitter that when he was planning to buy Twitter, he said, I would love to buy Twitter and turn it into an app resembling WeChat, where you can do everything. You can buy stuff, you can do real estate, you can message, and so he actually changed the name of the Twitter company. He merged the Twitter company with a new company he started called X. So which is another step towards what he wants to do. He wants to make Twitter a do-it-all app. So that if at some point, well, it's now called X, but when he rolls out, I guess, all the other add-ons, it's going to be called X rather than Twitter. But
so I have my own issues with Elon Musk because I feel like he should not have gotten Twitter. And I know that he had a sit-down interview with the BBC just yesterday. But I just feel like he has just done there's a saying, like my grandmother used to say it, right? And maybe older persons can relate. Monkey make he picnic till he spoil him. Like you do and you do and you do till you overdo. So it's like you keep adjusting, you keep changing. And then now the app is so annoying. Because I don't know what he's trying to do with Twitter, but he has made so many changes that a lot of persons that were with Twitter for eons, they just left, right? So I have my own issues with Elon Musk.
Yeah.
But, let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, but I think it would be interesting. I don't know if that would work in say, in the U.S. market and out here, an app that does everything like WeChat that they have in China. You can buy stuff, you can order. So it's basically Uber, Cash App, JAD, all of that in one.
And then who's controlling
WhatsApp.
it? Because with WeChat, who's controlling WeChat. Because I had WeChat on my phone, and I would communicate with my sellers. Because of course, I import stuff for my business, China, right? And now I'm unable to get WeChat. Like in order for me to get WeChat, somebody has to go and basically endorse me. So it's like when I apply, I have to say, okay, well, Azard has a WeChat, and then Azard has to come and say, yes, I know Candisie.
Really?
Yes, she can have a WeChat.
I'm not surprised.
I haven't had the chat in years now because of that nonsense. And then I had like one of my agents go on, and she tried to verify me and endorse me so that I could get it, and they refused to accept her endorsement.
Listen, I'm not surprised. When I was in China, and I had to download the WeChat, to communicate because they were not allowing WhatsApp and Facebook and all of these things.
Yeah. So that's what I asked, who's going to control it? Because if you're already saying that it's going to be quote unquote like WeChat, then you're already looking at a model where you have control. So you go on.
Well, what I meant, like WeChat, in the sense of a do-it-all app, not from the
I'm still
Big
concerned,
Brother,
like,
not from the Big Brother aspect.
Right.
But to be honest, there's no one to communicate because you have to have a WeChat to communicate to other people in WeChat.
Precisely.
So I basically downloaded just to see what the buzz was about.
Right.
Right.
But he's gonna be in for a time of his life because he's already having issues with Twitter because he says running Twitter has been quite painful and a roller coaster. I guess he thought it was going to be a walk in the park. And then when he opened it and he said he was going to bring Trump back onto it, that was another uproar. And then Trump was like, I'm not going to come back because I have my Truth app. but then
I'm actually surprised he hasn't gone back. Well, he's reversed the suspension, but Trump hasn't gone back.
Exactly.
Which is interesting. I'm actually surprised
But
at that.
I'm not. You know, his ego is bigger than anything else. So.
I guess he probably won't be able to resist when elections get closer.
Guys, it is now 8:59.
Yeah, so let's take a quick break.
And the man of the hour is here. And so let's take a quick break and we'll get back.
Awesome.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
It's tool season at Horsewood's Building and Nevis Center on St. Kitts and Nevis. Don't miss out on the year's best time to buy tools. Get 25% off selected tools store-wide. Hundreds of tools on sale. Slash by 25%. 25% off on tools for this tool season at Horsewood's Building Center on St. Kitts and Nevis. Horsewood's Building and Nevis Centers, the Federation's favorite home improvement stores. Some exclusions apply. See stores for details.
Do you want to improve the quality of your water? Is buying bottled water costing you a fortune? Say no to bottled water and yes to Tap Water Caribbean and Espo Water Solutions. We offer eco-friendly filtration products such as our Ultra Filter or our Bottle Pro for at home or on the go. Fill up anywhere. We also have a Shower Pro designed to protect and give you healthy skin. Visit us today at tapwatercaribbean.com or on Facebook and Instagram. Let's drink clean, pure, healthy water together. Remember, go green, save money, and save our planet.
And it's
Jamster, we're not taking any calls.
We're not taking any calls.
No.
Okay, great. Okay, so it's 2 minutes after 9 o'clock, and we've got Sir Kennedy, and he's celebrating his birthday today. It's his 87th birthday, right? You guys?
It is.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, good morning. Good morning.
Yes, we are here with Sir Kennedy Simmons. He is celebrating his 87th birthday, and we are hoping that, Sir Kennedy, you're having a wonderful day.
Having a busy day. It's as if I'm working.
Well, we want to say happy birthday, Sir Kennedy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
How is it going thus far?
Hectic.
Oh, no.
Hectic.
You're supposed to be relaxed and just...
There's no relaxing. There's a certain fellow in Bastia. I'm reluctant to call his name. I'll tell you why in a minute. He's the first person to call me every year on my birthday. And he calls at a very early hour to ensure that he's the first. This is why I don't want to call his name, because he has some friends. And if they figure out
what
hour he's calling,
they're going to try
one of them call me 15 minutes earlier.
Yes. Yes, so we are here with Sir Kennedy. He's celebrating his 87th birthday in the beautiful month of April. I have to do that, right?
Oh,
Sir Kennedy.
My goodness.
I bet you he's April.
Yes.
Listen, Listen, we have had to suffer through this all month, and we still have a couple more days to go. I'm counting down the end of April. But I must commend you on your outfit. I am totally liking it. I like your little pocket square and everything. If you guys see what Sir Kennedy is referring to as low-key, it's not low-key at all. You look very nice, and we're happy to have you here. 87 is a very significant number.
It is.
You know, I can only hope to attain that age. So thank you for taking time out your day to join us today.
Well, I'm glad to join you, particularly today. I don't know if it were any other day if I'd feel the same way. But I'll tell you, I can't complain. I'm thankful to be here. As the old people used to say, my belly full, and now we're hurting.
Amen.
Yes.
We'll take it. So tell us. I know you said you wanted to give some shout outs to the persons before we started the show, so go right ahead.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to all of the people who are calling, writing, sending WhatsApp emails, the work. So getting them from all over the Caribbean and even and further afield, families abroad, friends abroad. Thank you to all of you who remember my birthday and who are sending greetings. I do it at the start because by the time we reach the end, I might forget.
Better safe than sorry, right?
And I also want to publicly again express condolences to the family of Mr. Uriel Swanston. When I leave here today, I'm going to Nevis for his funeral. And Swanston was really a devoted public servant. He's the one politician I know who ran in a seat in an election unopposed.
Wow.
So, I mean, that tells you that he's a real people's person. And he was a good friend. So sympathy from me, my family, to all his family and friends.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Condolences.
Right. The rest of the time is yours now.
Yes, yes. So what is a typical day like for you now? How has retirement been?
Maybe had I realized how it would be, I might have done it a little earlier.
I mean, so Kennedy, you have had such a tremendous life, both private and public. I mean, you are the first living national hero. And so we could only, it's so much we could talk about.
I know, but I am I'm still in awe that we're sitting in your presence. And so for me, I'm trying to figure out, okay, so I know the political career, but I want to get to know Sir Kennedy Simmons, the man, right?
Yes.
And so that's where my questions are going to come from. What is your retirement like? What's your...
an hour, but we got to start from Kennedy Simmons, the boy.
Yes.
Right, the child, the student,
the doctor,
the playmate, and then reach up the doctor. But
yes.
we won't spend a lot of time on those holidays. But I grew up in a time when discipline was expected and that was the standard. But I'm very thankful even today for some of the people who influenced my life. People like the teachers, some of the teachers we had. And there's one teacher, we don't have time to go into everything. There's one teacher that I always remember and talk about, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Beach, Samuel Gilly Beach. He was the headmaster of the Bastia Boys School. And the Bastia Boys School at the time, the elementary school level at the time was the standard which everybody, both boys and girls, aspired to reach. Grammar school was, about 100 and something, so it was just there to catch a few. So persons like that help to steer you and affect your life. Things like being on time. When I came down here, I said, let me check my time to see when I reach.
You were right on time.
Yes.
I know.
We noticed.
Yes.
Because I remember you said, what time should I be there? And we said 8:45. And when they said you were here, it was 8:45. I was like, oh my goodness, I can only aspire to this.
But that was how we were taught in boys' school. If you arrived on time,
Yes.
you were late.
Agreed.
Right?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So, you know,
Things like that, to be true to your word, to be on time, to give your employer full value. You know, these things were inculcated in us in the
Do you want it to come closer?
very early stage.
Just bring your chair a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's it.
Yes.
Yes, those qualities were inculcated in us in a very early stage.
yes.
I remember my grandmother used to say, tell me, two most important things, words you got. No, see, please and thanks. Of course, that came out, that didn't just come out of the blue. You rush, you want something. Who want this?
Exactly.
Please, two important things, please and thanks. Now, I agree with thanks 100%. The please part has some circumstances. You want something somebody else has, always please. But when you want to achieve what you want to achieve and the things are out there and the ideas are out there, you go get it.
Agreed.
Yes.
I love it.
You find out what is required to get where you want to be and go do it, go get it, and you overcome whatever obstacles are in the way. So modify the please a little bit, because you're not entitled to anything. There's nobody that has to do things for you, right? And when they do, thanks.
Yes.
Pearls of wisdom. Yes, yes. I love it. And you know something, one of the quotes I gave this morning, it basically goes right back to what you said. Do what you can with what you have where you are right now.
Exactly.
Right? So, you know, you're not entitled to it. And you go out and you get it. Right? I love it. Thank you so much.
We have known Sir Kennedy. I know that you were a Leeward Island scholar as well. So tell us about the Leeward Island scholarship back then. I don't hear much of it now. I don't think that it's in existence.
I don't think that is in existence anymore. Everybody does their own thing.
Everybody does their own thing now.
It shifted to the state scholar was a sort of, now,
Yes.
it was a sort of equivalent to what it was then. But the thing about it, the competition was not just among your peers.
Right.
Here, you had to compete with the people in Antigua, Montserrat,
Yes.
St. Kitts Nevis and Anguilla. Right. And not in my time, but before that, if you're going to study a little bit further back in history, Dominica, because Dominica at one point was considered part of the Leeward Islands, right? That changed subsequently.
When I saw that achievement, I was like, wow,
Right.
this man is brilliant. He's been brilliant all his life.
I'll tell you a little secret about this thing called brilliance, right? The most important part of brilliance is hard work.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right? I mean, and I'm not saying it just to be cute. Right? Grow up, hard work. I always tell to children in school, do your assignments, learn what you're taught every day, steadily, consistently, hard work. Right? And next thing you know, somebody can say you're brilliant.
Yes.
You know, but not to be underrated, I think just even getting a scholarship where it's not just open to the persons in your area, it's the entire Leeward Islands. It's
I'll tell you about the scholarship a little bit, because what is behind it is important to me, what I live for, how I live. I don't beg. Back then, you didn't go to somebody and say, I want a scholarship, please, I would like to get a scholarship.
Yes.
My teacher, Mr. Beach, went to my aunt, who was my guardian, right? the history of those times is too much to go into why everybody was brought up by an aunt or an uncle or a sister or a grandmother and so on. But he went to my aunt, he told her that she must enter me into an examination which they had for grammar school. There were only 3 scholarships to be given at the time. But I was 9 years old. In 6th standard, we could reach up to 7. That was all that we had. Right? And the point that I really want to make about it, it wasn't, he didn't come and say, go to take him to Mr. This or to Mrs. That. Right? You know, you're a bright boy, take him.
Right.
See, make sure you enter him for that exam.
Yes.
Entered, and 3 scholarships. It would sound nice to say I came first, but no, I came 3rd. The first person was Desmond Otley from Sandy Point. The second was Joseph Archibald from Baker's Corner, in Bastille. And I came 3rd. The way the situation was those days, I could not immediately get to take up my 3rd place scholarship because the exams were in December. They had to wait. Some students who had been in school on scholarship did not leave school at the end of December. They went back to make sure that to wait on the results, to make sure they passed. So if they did not pass, then they continued with the scholarship, and the person who came 3rd has to wait. That was how it was. All right. So then I got the word, you got a scholarship, but you can't start school in January on a scholarship. You could have paid if you want. And we couldn't afford to pay $16.80 a term. We didn't have it. Couldn't afford to pay.
You know what's fascinating? You remember the exact price.
Listen.
I must remember the exact price because that was starting school then was 1946.
Yes.
Right? When I left school and went to work in 1955, my first paycheck, my first salary check, made me the highest wage earner in my house.
What was it?
$100 a month.
Wow. If the school is 16 something, $100 a month is a lot. Yes.
All right. And I was the highest wage earner in the house. There was only one, by that time, at that particular time, there's only one other wage earner, was well below that $100 a month, tell you. Wow. Because the others had gone away. My mother, my aunt, a couple of uncles had all gone away to different parts, some to Santo Domingo, some to the Netherlands, Aruba, Curacao, to work. That was the way it was. Later on, people migrated to England. Right? So that for me, it was a question, if you want to get on, if you want to move from here, you got to go and get it. You can't sit back and wait, and there's nobody to ask. Well, there were people there, but there was no point going to ask.
So let me ask you then, because you have gotten this scholarship, we know that you went to the University of the West Indies. Tell us about your medical career, the starting of that medical career. Because we know you as the politician, but we often forget Sir Kennedy Simmons, the medical doctor.
Well, the medical career the start has 2 aspects to it. The first aspect, of course, was a little boy growing up. Once I got big enough to help and do things, my grandmother used to get sick from time to time. I'm not quite sure what the problem was. But sometimes she gets sick in the night. And once I was big enough to do it, they'd send me to get the doctor. We had no telephone.
Right.
They'd send me to get the doctor. We lived in Rosemary Lane. Dr. Griffin lived down Fort Lance, and I had to hustle down to Fort Lance to wake up Dr. Griffin to come to see my grandmother. And that happened time after time, after time, right? The hospital was small, and people didn't go to the hospital for every little pain you had, or a fever. You got fever, they get a bath pan,
cold
hot water.
yes.
No, they got a bath for hot water because they had to first, and they had to boil the bush, what they call a bush bath.
Oh my.
You get your
get
bush
a bush
bath.
bath, right? A whole different bush that put into it, right? And with boiling water, they don't put you in the boiling water, but that was to brew the water that you're going to be put in. Right?
Wow.
So we didn't rush to hospital. House calls
Yes.
to the doctor was the thing. There was no emergency room service. You didn't just show up at the hospital, right? And that was one of the factors that influenced me. Right? The next one was living there in Rosemary Lane, a few houses away up the street. Right? There was a young man, a young boy, going to grammar school. He had got a scholarship. Hooray. Now I'm coming up and I get a scholarship. And I was so impressed by this young man.
Yes.
That, I'll tell you the truth, we didn't sit down to formal conversation to say that I was directly mentored, but in a sense I was mentored by what he was and how his life was unfolding. One of the most important things about the way his life was unfolding, I love sport. Everybody knows that. I was very much into sports. I played cricket, football at school, very much into sports. He was the school goalkeeper. Used to wear oh my goodness, a bright yellow. Goalkeeper's jersey.
Right.
They used to call him Yellow Breast.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Man, as a young fellow, got to run up to the alley, to the park,
Yes.
right, and see grammar school playing against Rovers or some other team, but Yellow Breast. And I pictured myself in that role, right? He went to Sunday school. His family was very religious, just like mine was. His church was at the top of Rosemary Lane. My grandmother's church was still there, Norwich Holiness
Right.
Mission, the little church
Yes.
at the bottom of Rosemary Lane. Eventually, the Wesleyan Holiness which moved to Fines Avenue, right? And now they are on Keon Street. Turn it off. Turn off. And now they're on Keon Street. So that my grandmother and Dr. Bertram Ross, those are the two influences that kind of steered me and made me want to be just like him.
Yes.
And I noticed, because of course, I've been going through your book and, in preparation for the interview. But I noticed that you changed your specialties several times in your medical career.
I did a lot of change in several times.
I felt comforted with that, right? Because just yesterday I was telling him initially I wanted to be a doctor and then I changed to law. And it just shows that sometimes we just don't put it on silent. And sometimes we don't know where we're going in our life, in our career, and sometimes we make adjustments accordingly. But tell us what made you change your specialties.
Shakespeare said it too. He says, there is a divinity that shapes our ends. Few them how we will. And you will find, I found throughout my life, I always planning for something. I'm planning what I'm going to do tomorrow, or planning for Friday.
Yes.
Coming for this interview. Planning what I'm going to do. And I told my driver, Mr. Marshall, when we finish with the interview here, we're going to go and pick up some items in the supermarket. Planning.
Yes.
But along comes the information that Mr. Swanson's funeral is in Nevis today. So you see, it's all right for you to plan, and you should plan, rather than drift aimlessly. But you also must have a plan B or plan C, because there are circumstances, there's a divinity out there that shapes our ends, or few them how we will, and you do something you plan, but There's another plan
I
out there.
think you have a chapter in here called Of Mice and Men as well.
Yeah.
Plans of Mice and Men.
Yes. So I plan, always planning. Right? And there is a point to the planning, but somebody else somewhere is working out another point for me. I have to figure it so. Because we still in terms of my medical career, the first thing I was very clear, wanted to be a doctor. But not just be a doctor. I never had a desire to be a doctor anywhere else in the world. I wanted to be a doctor in St. Kitts. That was it. Because I experienced the need for a doctor in St. Kitts. And that remains so throughout. You would think, well, as you got into it, man, that might change. You get offered a big position here, and you feel that you must. Hasn't changed. That aspect of it has changed, but the intervening things definitely made a big difference. So, unfortunately, I achieved what I considered then the zenith of my career, of my life, early. Do you want to be a doctor? Doctor in St. Kitts? You got it.
Awesome.
Had everything then.
I know.
Yes.
Awesome.
Right? But all the other stuff that's come in, I never set out for that. I didn't want to be anything else. Politics was the last thing from my mind. I didn't even used to go to public meetings when I was a little boy growing up. But because of where I lived, I couldn't avoid them. The public meetings usually were in the park. That was the place. And we only had to open our door and sit at the door down in Rosemary Lane, and you hear every word clearly.
Yeah.
So I never did, go to the place where a meeting was being held. Didn't need to.
Right.
So, but medicine was the thing. And so I got the opportunity. The opportunity was out there. Just like the opportunity to go to grammar school, I tried out there, I went for it.
Exactly.
The opportunity to go to the rest, to study medicine, wherever it was out there. And sometimes I laugh at some of the things. They reached a point where I was considered a possibility for a scholarship, for the scholarship to go to grammar school. Well, my head teacher, Mr. U.G. Crick, he was obsessed with this idea that this school must get a scholarship every year. There's a board with all the scholarship. And if you look at the years, this school must get this scholarship every year. Right? So this boy looks like the one that ultimately girl as well.
Yes.
Because, one of the Leeward Island Scholarship winners, Mrs. Foreman. Seaton Foreman.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. Her name is on the board. Right?
Interesting.
So he was basically positioning persons who he saw had talent in the early
Their potential.
Yeah, and ensuring that individual is well placed.
Yeah. I played football. And he would come and he's watching us practice. And at one point, I was the goalkeeper. Then I switched by the next year to centre forward. Not many people in the world do that. I heard a commentator doing Premier League football say talk the other day. And he referred to some player who had moved from the goal to centre forward.
Wow.
I did that back in 53, 54, somewhere back there. Right? Switch from goal.
So tell us about your experience then as a medical doctor here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You have finished the University of West Indies.
We reached back. We finally reached to St. Kitts and
Nevis.
Again, change of plan. I left here, want to be a doctor, I'm be a doctor in St. Kitts. Fine. Went and did my internship at Kingston Public Hospital. Again, this was with St. Kitts and Nevis in my mind, because some of my classmates and colleagues wanted to do the internship at the university. But the university was still very academic atmosphere and limited, not not in terms of its education, but in terms of size and its numbers, it can only take so much. And if even patients
Right.
is limited, and if you went to the university and as a patient, right, you could find yourself in a situation where they're treating you, they keep you a patient, but they contact KPH, Kingston
Public
and say,
Hospital.
look, we don't have any space up here. We have this patient, so can you take them?
So you wanted to go where
That's
the
the
challenge
government
was.
hospital.
Right.
And the government hospital is obliged to take. No, Kingston Public was where the action was. Right? For Friday night and a Saturday night in Kingston Public Hospital.
Oh my
Man,
goodness.
there's be coming in around by 11-ish or so. They start coming in from all over.
Yes.
Wounds and knifing, so fighting. There
Oh
wasn't
my
so much gunshots
goodness.
back in those days. But this was the action place. And the maternity section was a whole separate hospital, but within the same compound. You see? So I wanted to be in there to get that experience. I'm coming to St.
Of course. It
Limited
makes sense,
resources. So I wanted so I went to Kingston Public Hospital. And boy, that divinity worked out something for me there. You know. There was a doctor.
Yes.
By the name of Dr. Keith Tang.
Yes, yes.
He was living on Block C Chancellor Hall, and then I was assigned to live on Block C Chancellor Hall. He was on the top floor, I was on the middle floor of a three-floor like apartment building. And interesting enough, I mean, he'd be hustling down to go to class, and I just outside. We're on the same building, so hello. But he was in his final year when I arrived. Right? But the thing that was special about him, he was a tennis player, top Caribbean tennis player.
Yes, I saw that.
He was a member of the Guyana
Brandon Trophy, Brandon Trophy tennis player.
Brandon Trophy candidate. He was interested. Jamaica had a Brandon Trophy player at the time, Marvin Morris.
Yes.
Right. Who was also a student, not doctor, not medical, but he was a student. As a matter of fact, and he was a close colleague of P.J. Patterson, who was also a contemporary of mine.
Yes.
There. Right. So, okay, he graduated, Tang graduated and went his way. Years later, I applied to KPH, I get accepted, and the first clerkship they assigned me to was obstetrics and gynecology.
Right, I saw
and who is
that.
going to be my mentor? Dr. Keith Tang, my Block C Chancellor Hall man.
Yes.
Wow.
And if you've been to UW, right?
Yes.
Right? You will know, right? That Chancellor Hall is the hall of gentlemen. And
I actually went, I must say, I did a first year in Jamaica, and Chancellor Hall was the hall that I was on, but I was on Block D.
Oh, no.
Well, we'll tolerate you.
Take it, right?
We'll take it.
Close enough.
Right. So here is it. I am assigned to work with this man, and it was the greatest thing. I'll tell you something. The first week, as soon as I arrived, he called me. He sat me down and he said, when you see those nurses they have over there, he said, they are very experienced. They know what their business. When they call you, right, you go. He said, don't waste time asking damn fool questions. Right? You get up and you go. First week.
Wow.
I said, okay, go ahead. And I was happy with that. So here is it that by the Saturday afternoon, I am relaxing in my room, watching the one station on my black and white TV, which I'd bought from a previous intern who had left. Right? Phone rings and they call me. And I only wanted to know one question, where? Because it's a 3-story hospital.
Right. Yeah.
Where? And they told me labor room, which is on the 2nd floor. And I run across the street. We're just across the street from them. I across the street, and I get up the steps into the labor room. And when I get in there, the scene that greets me is that there's people standing around, nurses.
Yes.
They're graduate nurses, but in training with referee. And sitting before the patient who is up in a position for delivery. Is this nurse who I know, a senior person? And the head of the baby is out, and the face is blue.
No oxygen.
And instinct, I start to think, no, how the Dr. Tang and the registrar are at home. You can't call nobody else. This is it.
This is the moment.
Baptism by fire.
And as I'm moving towards the thing, another nurse comes and she throws a gown over me, opens up the gloves, tells me to put my hand into. Not a word was said yet up to that point. And mind is going 1,000 miles an hour. And I remember a tutorial that we were having on a veranda at the obstetrics department. And a registrar at the university, Dr. Clark, his name, I think he was from Trinidad, but he came to us from Canada.
Yes.
And we were discussing exactly that situation. Right? I don't know if we're going to, but he gave the instruction. He said to us, the only time that you deliver the posterior shoulder, the baby come, one shoulder is up, the other one is down, right? Is if the upper shoulder, the anterior shoulder, is impacted, it's against the pubis and can't come out. And I just sat down. I held my hand, right? The nurse put the scissors in my hand. She knew exactly what, handed to me. I made the passage wider by cutting and proceeded to do exactly what Dr. Clark said you're supposed to do.
Excellent memory.
Yeah. I was as if I'm doing it now.
Very good memory.
And I took the baby out, handed it off, right? They clamped the thing, they're gone to resuscitate the baby. Then she hands me the syringe with the local anesthetic, which I inject and so. Not a word said up to that point. And when I got up, the next word said, how's the baby? Right? Now, that word spread around the hospital like wildfire.
Of course.
Because you're accustomed to some young people coming from the university and like prima donnas, and they're coming down to this place. But the word spread, and it made a vast difference to my whole university life. I'm not university, internship, like down there. And Monday morning when we were making the rounds with Dr. Tang, he merely said to me, I hear you had an interesting time on Saturday, right? But from then on, well, he taught me things. He took the time. In that situation, normally you absorb stuff by watching, by helping, and so on.
But you proved yourself.
Yeah, but he actually took the time to teach me, step by step, to do certain operations as an intern. And then he would allow me to do some cases. First with him actually assisting. Then with him standing out in the room. Right? Not even scrubbed.
Oh.
Right? And that 3 months with him, about 2 or 3 procedures he taught me step by step. That's going to come in handy. Right? So that, right away I decided, boy, I am going to, I had my specialty now. I never had a thought of specialty before, but I have it now.
Right.
And I applied to Kingston Public for a job there in that maternity hospital when my internship year was finished. And we talked about it, and I envisioned going there and working with Dr. Tang. That was my plan. By the time the year was finished, That plan couldn't work.
Right.
Because a Jamaican student, man, a good friend of mine also know him. He was in the year before me, Dr. Pat Knight. He applied to the government for a job as a doctor in obstetrics at the institution. One job. Right? Obviously.
Exactly.
I mean, no brainer.
He's
For one
Jamaican.
thing, they can't guarantee that I'm going to stay there.
Exactly.
And so on. More likely. So he got the job.
And so this is 1964,
Yeah.
63,
63.
63, 64.
Well, the application was 63 for 64. And then they offered me a job. They said they couldn't give me that, but they'd offer me one in anesthesia.
Right.
The interesting thing, I said, no, I don't want to do that. Well, I end up...
How the tables turned. Yes.
I end up... So that was one of the first changes of plan.
Yes.
I still tried to pursue it by going to Harlem Hospital as a resident in obstetrics and gynecology.
Yeah, I read that, and then I noticed
something changed it.
Exactly.
Right.
But you're still known to have performed the first lower segment cesarean section in Anguilla.
My hands did it, but that Dr. Tang.
Wow.
Because when I made the incision in the uterus, the nurse exclaimed, "Doctor, what are you doing?" I said, "Take it easy. It's all right. It's all right. That's what we do now." Because my predecessor, who had been there for years, was a 70-something-year-old general surgeon. He was a 70-something-year-old general surgeon, and had been accustomed to doing it a different way.
Right.
Yes.
For all these years, they got accustomed to that. Right? But the way Dr. Tang taught me, and they were shocked. But they were when
the results,
way it worked out, because it's quicker. You get and all that, and neat. So that I'm glad you referenced that, because you see how one thing is leading to another. I had a similar experience in surgery, working on the surgery unit, but I won't go into that. But I come back to St. Kitts. I decided coming back to St. since I'm not getting exactly what I wanted.
Yes.
Because had I got
home is where the heart is
with Dr. Tang, I was never going to leave that until I had qualified
exactly
as an obstetrician. Come back to St. Kitts. Within days of being here, I started working at Cunningham Hospital. And to be truthful, I loved it. Right? I loved working at Cunningham, and the people we worked with, and the nurses were so helpful and so good. The thing is, we didn't have a lot of things and this equipment and that equipment and so on. But the atmosphere was just right, and I loved working there. And I lived just outside the hospital, where the Alliance Française is now, in that house. That's where I lived. So they look over and see if my car is parked in front of their house. From there. But I was permitted private practice.
Yes.
They didn't have money to start an office and so on. But somebody had given me a bag, a medical bag as a gift. And I filled a stock that bag. And I went into business right away as a house call doctor.
Right. And I saw they said as the always available night call doctor.
Night call, you just call me, man.
Always available.
Always available. Right? And I was a night call bully.
Tell us what that means.
After all, there were only two of us who really would go up to St. Peter's. Because it was tough. Dr. D. John and me. Right? There was a part to get to Upper Monkey Hill. Right? You couldn't drive. If you know, you go straight up the main road and you go through the alley by Hobson Shop. Hobson Shop is very famous and well known. You drive through that alley, and then you come out on the other side of the alley and you park. There's an open area you can park. And you walk down into the river, old riverbed in water, but all the big stones. You walk over the big stones and you climb up on the other side and you go up to Upper Monkey Hill.
Wow.
Now, where that experience turned into something later on. And you see the link between that and politics later on. Because one of the things we did when we got in office, we built an overpass, a footpath overpass, so you didn't have to go down into the...
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
People, if they wanted to bring you down to the ambulance still, they'd help bring you across the bridge to the ambulance or the car or whatnot. Subsequently, we built a more permanent bridge that you could drive over into that community. That has changed a lot significant. I mean, significant change. But that was the start. And we did that right up there in St. Peter's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? Emergency, the night calls?
Yes.
As I was the night call, I call myself the night call bully. But it was necessary for me because I didn't have one to go and rent a place and all of that. And I was planning. I had a plan. So I said, man, I'll stick with that for the time being. All right?
So at this point in time, what year is this? Are you doing
This is
OB/GYN
64.
or?
This is 64 before I went to Harlem Hospital. That's this.
All right, because I noticed that you did a little stint in internal medicine, and then you came back to.
That comes up later. But one more story about the night call thing, because you see, the persons who are still alive, who are still around, who know of these things. I mean, you can't talk to Oswald about me and them holidays. Oswald was a little boy. But just like how I used to run down to Fort Lands to call Dr. Griffin, Oswald had a grandmother who was sick from them. And she used to send Oswald to call me.
Cycle.
Yes. He talks about it all the time. Right? For down in Newtown, corner Pitkins Street and George Street. Right? So that was the start of my sent me to Anguilla. They used to call me a little boy doctor as soon as they see me.
I read that. I read that.
And they were not happy that I was sent because in the context of how Anguilla felt about him at that time, it's as if they take the worst son or everything and they send, we need a doctor down here, and they send us a little boy.
You changed that immediately, though.
Yeah.
You changed that.
Right.
I saw that you conducted a surgery, like almost immediately.
Almost immediately days in. And people were skeptical. I said, you let a little boy operate on your child.
You saved their life.
But the context was such, is night. Was it not in the night? I was simply offered them, look, we have to send this person to St. Kitts. You can get a plane charter or whatnot. Or we can send you to the hospital over in St. Martin. Right? I mean, there were options if the circumstances were right. But it happened in the night. Our call was called about 7-ish. And I said, okay, I'm going to try to hold this person till morning. And then we can activate everything else. But asking us, put her on a monitoring chart. That is, we monitor the pulse and the temperature every 5 minutes, and you record it. So you get a graph as to what is happening. Yeah. I say, if this starts to trend up, call me. About 2 o'clock in the morning, she called me. She said, doctor, check the last 3, trending up.
Wow.
Great.
I said, okay, call the parents, me up there, you know who you're supposed to get for that, because call out the people, the dispenser, what we call the pharmacist, now we're going to give the anesthetic. We just sprinkle the thing on the...
I had to Google that. I saw
You
that
saw
type
that?
of mask that
Yeah,
they use.
right.
How do you pronounce that word?
Schimmelbusch.
Schimmelbusch mask.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, we were still
There's
using that in
there
these
was
times?
no such thing as anesthetic machine.
See why we needed you in that field?
And when I got this, they said, we have to wake up Mr. Lloyd.
Yeah.
Lloyd's guest house across the street from the
Right.
Gold Cottage Hospital. Hey, where did I wake up Mr. Lloyd from?
No electricity.
Mr. Lloyd, there is no electricity, but Mr. Lloyd has a generator for his
Yes.
guest house. They run a cable across, and that is what lights the operating room. They had the regular looking operating room lamp. Everything else was gas lamp.
So let me ask you, because we're talking about the medical scene and your experience back in the day. When you look at it now, although you are not currently practicing as a medical doctor, what is your perception of what we have now?
Well, specifically in St. Kitts.
Yes.
Yeah. And when I say now, I'm not talking specifically like today or yesterday. We're talking in this present context.
Yes.
Generally.
Right.
We've come a long way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the general level here is very good, and it is adequate to deal with most situations that we face. Now, remember that there is a higher level out there. There are things, every day medicine is advancing, and you can, as soon as something new come up, get it.
Yes.
It doesn't work that way. Right? There's a lot that will have to go on for you to get. You have to get people trained, you have to get equipment which costs money, etc., etc. Right? So it's come a long way, right? So when I was started practicing here, even when I got into office, there was no emergency room. You had to call the doctor give you a note to go. Right? We started it. My administration started the emergency room service.
Right, and I wanted to touch on some of that because I know we're discussing your medical career, but there are a lot of things that you did. And thank you, for instance, maternity leave, the 13 weeks.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of stuff that you did in the medical sector and in your while you were in office that we're still benefiting from today.
Things like maternity leave, 13 weeks maternity leave. I mean, these are things which are close to me. Children, I mean, because the things that the parents of can impact the children.
Yes.
That mothers do not lose their jobs in civil service because they were unmarried and get pregnant.
You know, something as
That's
simple
a
as
serious
that.
thing.
I saw that you passed a legislation where unmarried mothers would still be treated the same
Just
way.
the same.
Because
it's
at
not
that
your business.
point,
Technically,
exactly.
if you're the government, it's your business.
Exactly.
A child is a child is a child.
Right, and the early childhood development.
Early childhood, we began to see that what happens to a child later is seriously impacted by the early environment.
Agreed.
Right?
And when you talk about the removal of personal income tax as well.
Right, because all those things impacted people economically too. Early days. I mean, that the maternity leave, the
early childhood.
Personal income tax.
Yeah, the early child. All these things. The emergency room service.
Right, I saw you before you left Anguilla. You did that.
Yeah, well, you know something that affected the people very, 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 very much. You get a job finally. I mean, there's growth and development as we go along, and the administration tries to do something, and you started to get people on factories on the industrial side, people who work in there. But we were plagued. The factory startup this year, 2 years later, the feeling of making enough money, they're gone. Bam, they'll send home everybody.
No protection.
Some of them actually got the last week's salary.
Yeah.
And some of them people turn off and don't pay the people.
Protection of employment.
Protection of employment.
Another legislation.
Thank you.
Sitting there in my office at government headquarters,
Yeah.
when Medusa factory closed down, the workers at Medusa factory marched down to us, you know. And marched they marched down Church Street demanding to see me.
Yes.
Oh my.
But
yeah, I
what
see.
we did at the time was send my chief security officer, go down and talk to them. We don't want no big noise and crowd outside here. Go talk to them. Tell them choose people, 3 people.
Yeah.
Send them upstairs and let me talk to them.
Yeah.
And they did that.
I noticed that a lot of your legislation, they were for the people. And for me, reading that, I said, you know, you were always looking out for the people.
That's what it was all about.
And so the status of national hero is only fitting because when we look at some of the achievements that you made, they were mostly people-centered, even the amount of schools.
Yeah, talking about the construction of the primary school in St. Paul's. And
remember, yes, we had a visitor last week that mentioned that, you were very significant in creating the primary school in St. Paul's. But I noticed there were quite a number of schools that you built.
The expansion of the CFBC College in 1989.
We built St. Paul's, we renovated Newton Ground. We used to say, was a joke we used to make, that the students, when rain came down there, we used to take the children outside because they're safer outside than inside.
Thank you for fixing the school.
Maintenance.
Sandy Point, we built that from scratch. Now, Vorchilds, we built and started the Vorchilds High School.
Yes.
You had Vorchilds had primary schools there all the time. Vorchilds High School, right? Whichever minister, there was a minister who is an alumnus of Vorchilds High School. Thankful for that. Come up, what the lady named? Bronte Welch.
Yes, Bronte Welch.
Bronte Welch. Dr. William Connor. Beach Allen. Right?
Wow. CFB.
Beach Allen.
After Beach Allen.
I think it was CFB.
We spoke about the Newtown. Was it Newtown?
Yeah, we didn't build the Newtown. I don't think, no, we didn't build the Newtown. I mean, primary school. That was there. Okay, but that's enough.
Yes, that's a number.
That's quite a number of schools.
Yeah.
So you were very instrumental in education
Hospital.
as well. Yes.
We built Molyneux Hospital. Right?
Mary Charles.
From scratch, which we named after the first woman who contested an election in the St. Kitts Nevis, Mary Charles.
Mary Charles.
And it wasn't just that she contested an election. Mary Charles was an icon. She was a teacher. She taught nearly everybody in that part of Mary Charles. She lived there still.
Yes.
She had migrated to St. Thomas, right? And yet she came back and she was living again right in Molyneux, right? Man, her name, ought to live on forever for those people over there.
So I know we've been discussing your medical career.
Oh, yeah.
But are you completely out of the political arena?
Of course.
So there's no advice that you want to, and no pearls of wisdom that you would want to leave with your beloved party and our government at this point?
Two things. One, party-wise, that our party must remember that they have an outstanding legacy. I'm sorry, I'm part to be the one to say it then. And they must remember they have an outstanding legacy. The People's Action Movement has instituted or by policy carried out the most important and impactful measures.
So they have a lot to live up to.
That's right. But they have a lot to build on. Every administration that came after us, there's a setback in a sense. Boy, money flowing. The CBI. So,
but you were instrumental in creating as well.
Yeah, and in the first 10 years of our existence as a party, we achieved the St. Kitts and Nevis the highest level of per capita income growth in the Caribbean and the whole of Latin America.
Wow. So that would have been in 1994 because it started in 84. So the first 1994.
The first 10 years. Right. And it's there. I think the pages, I'm sure it's a photograph in
Listen,
the book.
this book, I don't know when I'm going to finish reading it, but I would advise everyone listening to get a copy.
Don't worry about the finishing. It's the journey that's the important.
Yes. And
Thank
they
you.
can get copies currently at Harper's Bookstore, Lila's Bookstore.
Or the museum. The museum also has a bunch of copies.
Shout out as well.
Yes,
Yes,
the
my
museum.
sister works at the
Yes.
museum, and she already said to me, we have those books selling, so
Yes.
I have to give them a plug.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
the
course.
CBI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Personal income tax from way back there. The sugar lands.
Yeah, the purchase of the sugar lands.
Port Sante. What's the other one? The Southeast Peninsula
Yes,
Road.
right.
Refueling facilities
Simmons
at the
Highway.
airport. If we had time, I would tell you the story of how jets came here.
We have 1 more minute.
Right, so I can't tell that in 1 minute. But just pass.
Yes.
When you pass up opposite the playing field.
Yes.
The area where you see all the market is.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But the road you'll see right now, I think it's still there. An open trench.
Yes.
Huh? Pick up people is on the open trench. Right? It is a huge pipe, underground pipe, that's being carried, that's taking fuel, jet fuel, from the terminal up to the airport. I believe I tell the story in the book. So anything you miss or anything you don't get,
grab the
right?
book.
Grab
Grab
the
a
book.
copy of the
Wait.
book.
I'll tell you something though.
Yes.
I could not have got thus far politically, because before I got married to my current wife, I was mostly medical. Without my wife, Mary, boy, you would not know that my family had to put up with any 10,000 million things. Can you imagine you live in a house and you all don't know this? We had to be putting up sandbags every night. Had a stock of sandbags in the garage, right? And every night we had to put them up on that side of the house on the veranda,
Behind every great man.
right? And
A strong
my family
woman.
had to put up with all that,
Exactly.
with my wife and children. Right.
The sandbags were for what?
Protection.
Because those are the days when my life was threatened. You remember that somebody came down to government headquarters looking for me. And the policeman who, I know that fella. Man, we were in school, he ain't gonna do me nothing. With his gun on his hip,
Yes.
he went out to talk nicely to the fella, and the fella take a machete and open one side of his face.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Right? And when he turned and ran away, the policeman. And I was in the parking lot, so opened the back door around the pond that was there. So he came out the back door, jump in my car, which had just parked up inside there, right? And I got in the car to drive him to the hospital. And as we coming out of the parking lot into Church Street, the fellow was standing right there waiting for us.
Oh my goodness, he's
Right? But
determined.
the windows were up, and he took the machete and he chopped the side of the car.
Wow.
Huh?
This was you while in office?
What chapter in the book is this? I'm going to skip a few chapters. No.
It just happened that it came up here. But I didn't put that in. I didn't put it in.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Yeah.
And he chopped the side of the car, just kept driving and carried through.
Wow.
See? So the family, my wife, man, there are times she like to look at me and every minute say, "You all right?" Oh, because I used to do, still do, a lot of thinking and figuring and working out. I'm always working out something.
You're a planner by heart.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I think back on it now, I remember the words of Wordsworth back then. When oft upon my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. What is the they? The they was what's past, how it has come to what's now, what's present, and what do I see of the future, the tomorrow. That's what's flash upon the inward eye. And it'll be there on the couch, on the bed, and my mind is going 10,000 miles an hour.
But Sir Kennedy, you have an excellent
Yes.
memory.
Excellent.
You just rattled off that poem.
That memory is funny, selective. I'll come out of the bedroom and I'm going out to the kitchen to get something. And when I reach the kitchen, oh my God, what is it? I forget what it is.
Trust
that
me,
happens to all of us.
That happens to all of us.
It's for persons whose mind can't turn off. It's probably why, because your mind is always racing.
Yes.
But this has been an excellent morning, and we will definitely have to have you back for more. So maybe not a birthday celebration, but a part 2, because our audience is still waiting to hear some more pearls of wisdom from you.
Exactly.
I mean, I was just in awe. I didn't even get to ask you some of the questions I wanted to ask. So you definitely have to visit us again.
We only touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, because I get to say, I introduced the first anesthetic machine with a ventilator.
Yes,
at
I
the
read that.
hospital. Right? I introduced the first continuous electrocardiograph in the theater. Right?
I saw that. But Sir Kennedy, something I wanted to touch on. I was when I read it, I was like, oh, so he was a little bit of a rebel. The Judith Hart article.
You read it?
Yes.
We haven't talked about it today.
Yes. He invaded the office.
One of, is that you mean? I'm sure he talked the other one.
Yes.
I believe even when I was a student, I think the government actually might have been upset with me. Because, and I would think I was probably considered an upstart. Right? Because you would have read where I didn't work for the government because we had some differences.
Yes, I saw
and I
that.
couldn't get a contract and blah, blah,
Listen,
blah.
but the figures are what stood out to me. They were charging, the government rate was EC $10 per service.
I was
right?
suggesting
he
that.
He said, okay, I'll do it for $5 for a minor operation, and they still didn't even take it. And I'm looking at these figures, $10 and $5.
I think that was the reason back then that the movement would have gained some momentum based on the square footage, the price that was by the electricity department on the square footage of land, and not by the consumption.
Right. Those things. No, but I'm saying, even I did mention it. I think it's in the book, yeah.
It is.
But the part about when I was a student, while I was a student, still on?
Yes. Even then you were a rebel.
Yeah, I was a rebel. Slightly. Not just get up and be a rebel. Let me tell you this. I am at the university. During that time, I never once write home, call home, anything to ask for $1. During that time, got a scholarship, I have to exist with the scholarship. Right? So every dollar was precious. You were reading there how I tried to save and so on. Every dollar was precious. Nowadays, you have a child gone to university. No, don't care how much scholarship you think. They say they have, right? Mommy and daddy have to send this every month and so on and so forth. Right?
Yes.
Well, not with me.
But you were very crafty. I saw they used to pass a specific time at your neighbor's at your neighbor's door so that you could get your breakfast. And then you had already negotiated dinner somewhere else. I was like, this man was slick.
But in a sense, it was good fun, working out those things. When I left the university and went on a vacation, went on a vacation in '59 in New York, and I had to start to get little bits and pieces of things, right, that together.
Yes.
Man, at that stage, I had to save. My breakfast was 2 slices of toast, a cup of coffee.
Yes. I saw
That's
that.
it.
Mrs. James provided this morning.
Mrs. James.
And the lunch?
The lunch was an egg sandwich and
milk.
Small, you used to get them in the supermarket.
Yes.
The small box of milk.
Of milk, yes.
Right?
I
And
read
at
that.
night, get off the train and I walk in through Harlem Hospital. I said 59, this was 64.
Yes.
Walking through Harlem Hospital, walking through, not Harlem, from Harlem Hospital. I'm real off now. But in New York, the dinner, you asked me about dinner.
Yes.
A bowl of soup and, just a bowl of soup. Coming with the bowl of soup was a little packet with crackers.
Exactly, yes.
All right? And that was my meal until I made a contact here, right?
I saw that.
You always have to make a contact.
Listen, you were very crafty, but I noticed something when I was reading that you're a lover of music, because things were tight, but you still managed to go to those concerts every Friday night.
At Lewiston Stadium in New York, 50 cents. It was only 50 cents.
Yes.
I love the concerts, man.
Yes.
50 cents. Yeah.
So we definitely have to do a part 2 of this, Sir Kennedy.
So we're gonna put a bid in for it from now. We're gonna start begging from now. If you could come back and just give us some more,
well,
time.
In that case, I don't know. In that case, I wouldn't bother to tell you. Yeah, I was started to tell you a thing at university. The university write me one time and tell me if my money isn't paid in for me by a certain time, I gotta go.
Wow.
Oh wow.
They still do that.
They still do that.
I had to leave.
Yes.
Well, I get a word to the government. And it was not easy those days. You had to plan. You had to make an arrangement to have an overseas call. And the university had to get permission because they're going to bill you afterwards. Oh, yes, for an overseas call. You know how it is.
Yeah.
The phone is on the middle.
And it's just one phone.
And, and you can make the local calls, no problem. But to go overseas, you had to arrange. And then you had to arrange with the person who you're going to call. Not everybody had telephone right there. So
right now, you could just send a WhatsApp or text message. No,
right.
But not
so
then.
with all that, it took like a few days to get it in place that I'm going to talk to somebody who's going to help. And they told me, yes, it's Mr. and I'm going to call his name now, his family, he passed on. But he will be at this office 10 o'clock this morning. When I go with all the trouble to go through, get through to the office, 10 o'clock in the morning. Mr. Son, he's not here.
Oh, for the love of Christ.
You have to publish it because there's so much preparation just to get that one
and
call.
And then his school life is being threatened.
Yes.
Not here. Me not here. Exactly. He tell me to call at this. He set up the time. Well, he up the other office. The other office, the government had an office in police.
So that's another overseas call.
Police headquarters.
Another connection to be made.
Exactly.
Yeah. He said, he up there, and it raining and he ain't got no car. Well,
I could only imagine your blood pressure at that time.
And I sit down and I write a letter, and I ended the letter this way. Mr. So-and-so can keep the money. It would not be enough to get him a car, but he can get him a bicycle.
Oh my God, listen. I know you said you don't beg, but you see that's the Aries coming out in you.
That's the Aries, yes. That's the Aries.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm saying I might have been taught an upstart.
Yes.
But you were justified.
The thing is this, that at that time there were some real nice people at university, real upstanding people like Sir Ira Walwyn, long deceased, Sir Probin Innes, Dr. Macmillan Hodge, and this little upstart had two dresses.
I'm just glad you got it sorted out so you could finish your studies, because we wouldn't have a Dr. Kennedy Simmons.
Yeah, and we might not have had Kennedy being the first prime minister and national hero.
Your journey is amazing.
Yeah.
And we're so grateful that you're here to tell the story, because we were just saying this morning, we were never able to speak to any of the other national heroes.
Yeah,
so
we are too young.
We are just happy that you're still here and your memory is intact to tell us all of these wonderful stories.
And I'm glad I'm glad to have the memory, but I'm glad I did put down.
Remember we were asking about a second book?
I'm not going through that again. Second. That's enough, a little appetizer then.
Yes. So guys, the book, The Making of a National Hero, an autobiography by Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons. For those of you that are, because there are people that have been commenting and they've been sending you birthday wishes all throughout the show on Facebook and on YouTube. For those of you who want to get more in depth into some of the stories you've heard this morning, you can go out and purchase the book. And we're still going to try to get another interview with Sir Kennedy Simmons.
We have to. We have just touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yes. Thank you so much. And see, I am returning it.
So thank you so much, Sir Kennedy. And we do wish that you continue to have a wonderful, fantastic, amazing birthday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and have a safe trip over to Nevis. Thank you. All right, guys, that has been Island Tea this morning with our only living national hero, Sir Kennedy Alphonse Simmons. And I hope you guys have had a good morning. We're going to show him your messages because some of them are actually complaining that they weren't able to call in, but the show just would not permit it. We didn't have enough time. So you guys can feel free to send the messages and we'll pass them on to Sir Kennedy. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.